Okay, welcome everyone to our virtual chat with the Study Abroad office, focusing on our London programs. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Catherine Mandalakis, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Fordham Fund for Family Giving and Engagement. First off, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy during these trying times. As you may know, Study Abroad has been suspended for the fall semester, but we're all eagerly looking forward to when we can hop on a plane again, hopefully soon. We do want to be mindful of the evolving situation around the world, and I'm hoping that the Director of International and Study Abroad Programs, Joe Rienti, can talk a little bit more about that. Joe?
Thanks, Catherine, and thanks to all of you for joining us. We figured, as Catherine said, that because of the ongoing situation with COVID-19, it would be good to, at the start of this presentation, just give you all a little bit of an update on where we are and what's happening, particularly in terms of the London Center programs. As you all know, and Catherine mentioned, Study Abroad has been suspended through fall 20. And Fordham University created a steering committee that has led the university and continues to lead the university through the restart of reopening of our campuses in New York and all of the different operations across the university. Study Abroad is part of that steering committee. We have a group that has worked and continues to work on assessing the situation around the world, as well as the committee has developed a set of criteria that have to be met before we can restart Study Abroad in a safe way. One of those conditions is that the US State Department and the CDC have to lower their travel ratings for a country, and we'll speak specifically about the UK. The rating would have to come down to a 1 or a 2 by both of those agencies. That is the baseline indicator for when Study Abroad would be able to safely restart. There are a lot of other conditions that I don't want to go through all of those with you, but as of now, for spring 21, there is planning going on, and those of you with students who will be studying abroad in the spring, you will be invited to attend a meeting in mid-October where we will share with you the details of the plan for spring 21. There will be modifications, just like there are modifications to the existing fall semester here at Fordham. And what we've been tasked with doing is all of the precautionary care that has been taken here in New York at our campuses in relation to COVID-19. We've been tasked with making sure that same precautionary care is in place in London as well, and our other sites globally. So at this meeting, we won't be able to provide specific details on testing and social distancing and all of the other details that I think everyone would like to hear about. We will be doing that in mid-October for anyone with a student who plans to study abroad in the spring 21 semester. And those invitations to those meetings are forthcoming. Your student does have the information. We'll be notifying parents as well shortly. But at this meeting, we won't be able to do that, unfortunately, because the plan is still in development, but we will be ready to do that in mid-October. But Mark, Matt, and Elizabeth are here to share with you, what an experience in London is typically like. And of course, there might be some changes when your student goes abroad, as there can be in any semester, whether there's COVID-19 or just any. We do reserve the right to make changes based on risk and health and safety. So that's all I wanted to say. You're in good hands with the rest of the team here. And I think Catherine's going to get started with introductions.
Yes, thanks so much, Joe. So before we get started, I did just want to let you know that we're going to be answering pre-submitted questions as well as live questions. So if at any point during the program you have a question, please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll get to those when we have time. All right, so I'd love to introduce our panel. First up is Mark Simmons. Mark is the interim head of the London Centre and director of academic affairs. He's a Scot from Edinburgh and has lived in London for the last 16 years. He's over 25 years of experience working in international relations and higher education in both the US and the UK. Mark is an enthusiastic proponent for the transformative nature of international education, with a particular interest in experiential and community-engaged learning. Mark views himself first and foremost as a Londoner and loves his adopted home. Hi, Mark. Next up is Elizabeth Collins. Elizabeth is a Fordham graduate and has been with the Study Abroad office since 2018. She's the Granada and London Center Program Advisor and assists students in preparing for their semesters overseas. Elizabeth studied abroad through Fordham's exchange program in Brisbane, Australia during her undergrad. Welcome, Elizabeth. And finally, we have Matthew Holland. Matt has been with the London Center since 2016 and is the Assistant Head and Director of Student Affairs. Matt oversees student housing, health and well-being, and student activities in London. Thank you all so much for being here today. Anything that I missed that you'd like to add? Great, covered it all. Okay, let's jump right in with the pre-submitted questions. First, where is Fordham located in London? How and where are the living quarters situated?
Well, perhaps if I answer the first part of the question, Fordham in London is located in a part of the city called Clerkenwell, which is between the City of London, which is the commercial heart of the city, and the West End, which is sort of the theatre district and the academic district. We're quite unusual, actually, for a US study abroad program in London. Most of the programs in London are based in areas like Kensington, that many of you have maybe visited when you've been in London, or in Bloomsbury, in the academic heart. We're quite unusual in that we're quite far east in London, and London for the last 30 years has shifted eastwards. The focus of the city has moved. And Clerkenwell today is a very exciting neighbourhood. It's really the media district of London. A lot of media companies, advertising, fashion, broadcasting companies are based in Clerkenwell. And we're really very much in the heart of the business district. To give you a sort of an idea of the location, you can leave our building and in 5 minutes walk, you can be at the European headquarters of Goldman Sachs. At 5 minutes in the other direction, you can be at what we call Silicon Roundabout. You in the United States have Silicon Valley. We have Silicon Roundabout, which is the largest cluster of tech startups, companies outside of the United States in the world. So it's a real business area. Again, another 5 minutes, you can be in the heart of the City of London, walking across to St. Paul's Cathedral, which is right in the middle of the business district. For those of you that have an interest in literature, historically, it's the home of Charles Dickens, and Charles Dickens' house is just around the corner from our centre. And if any of you have read Oliver Twist, you'll know Fagin's Lair, the Den of Thieves, and that's actually at the end of our street in Clerkenwell. So it's a very interesting, dynamic neighbourhood. It's also traditionally the home of the Italian community in London. So it makes for an interesting mix of people. I'll hand to Matt now, who will say something about where our student accommodation is.
Thanks, Mark. I see there's a question about whether we'd write down the location. It's on Eyre Street Hill. I'm sure we can add it in just a minute, but close to Farringdon and Chancery Lane tube stations. So our housing can differ from semester to semester. Such is the nature of study abroad, that we have different student enrolment numbers from the spring to the fall to the summer. So that can impact on what housing is available. We have recurring housing options, and those options are in different neighbourhoods. So the London Centre, as is common for a significant number of study abroad programmes around the world, we have a study centre, but housing is separate from that. So it's not a campus experience. You're living in London. So our housing tends to be in kind of converted townhouses, and it's apartment style living. Neighbourhoods that we tend to use can include the local neighbourhood. So we often have a number of buildings, and all of this information is both on the website and provided to students before. Cayman House is a 4-minute walk from housing. Bing Place, which is over in Bloomsbury, which is the kind of university hub in London, where you've got LSE, UCL, SOAS, etc. Is a 15-20 minute walk away. And we have some housing which is over in Maida Vale, which is kind of Paddington direction. So if you're looking at a map of central London, it's northwest of central London, so that's a little bit leafier. And then we have some type of housing in kind of Old Street, Shoreditch, Hoxton neighbourhood, and that is really kind of one of the hit places. I'm not sure if it'd be a fair comparison, but if I understand correctly, kind of Harlem is seen as now hip with lots of bars and coffee shops, etc. If that is a fair comparison, then that is kind of Shoreditch, somewhere that has kind of gone through that. And to give one example, in Shoreditch, there's a shopping centre with a bar and restaurant on top, but it's made entirely out of shipping containers. So every shop is exactly the same dimensions. So that gives you just kind of a flavour of Shoreditch. So what students have the opportunity to do is pick a style of living that will suit them, maybe kind of a quiet neighbourhood, or maybe something which is right in the heart of the centre. Our housing is all within a 30-minute commute to the centre. As I say, some walking distance, some you have to jump on a bus or a tube. So that's all included in the information that students receive. And then there's a housing assignment process where students can indicate a first and second choice by building, by apartment size, which roommates they'd like to live with, and they can also indicate what's most important to them. Is it the location of the apartment? Is it how many people they live with? Is it the cost of the accommodation? And that's then factored into the assignment process. So I hope that covers broadly kind of at least where our locations are and some of the key points around that.
Great, thank you, Mark and Matt. Mark, wanted to add something else?
Just to say, yes, it's a very, as Matt said, that most of things are within walking distance. And I think that's one of the great advantages for our location. If you're looking to go into the financial district, into the city, the business district, it's probably only 10 minutes walk. 10 minutes walk in the other direction, you can be at the British Museum or the British Library, which are two of the greatest cultural institutions in the United Kingdom. And equally, in 10 minutes, you can be at St Pancras Station, where you can jump on the Eurostar and in a couple of hours be in the centre of Paris. So it's a great location for exploring London and the wider European continent.
Thank you, wonderful. The next question, we received quite a few questions about the application process. So if you could speak a little bit more to that process, as well as the conditions for acceptance and some of the deadlines.
Yeah, I can talk about that. I work right in the study abroad office here in New York. So in terms of the application process, everything will be done online, and there is an application that students will need to be completing in order to be accepted into our programs. So the applications are open to second semester sophomores and juniors in either semester, fall or spring. They'll need to complete some essay prompts. If they're a liberal arts student, they will need to have a recommendation completed by their major advisor. If they're a Gabelli student, they'll need one completed by their Gabelli dean. And then we look for a 3.0 GPA and a clear disciplinary record. So those are the main requirements for applying. It's nothing too intense. Students are always welcome to come meet with an advisor in our office if they have any specific questions about the application or who they need their recommendation completed by. And then in terms of deadlines, we have a early action phase and a regular final action phase for both semesters. So for the spring, anyone applying for a spring program, the early action phase will begin April 15th until May 31st, and then final action is October 1st. And then anyone looking to apply for a fall program, early action runs from November 1st to January 15th, and final action is March 1st.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll also be sure to include links to various areas of the Study Abroad website in the follow-up email. So if you miss some of these dates, don't worry. Okay, this might be another question for you, Elizabeth. Let's talk a little bit about the financial needs of students who are studying abroad. So what is the cost for school and living? How does financial aid work with study abroad programs? And if a student is on the tuition exchange program, can that be applied to study abroad?
Sure. Yeah, so the Fordham London program is fairly straightforward in terms of pricing because it is a Fordham run program. So students will be paying the same tuition that they would pay if they were spending a semester in New York. The main differences that students will see is the housing. It's approximately $7,000 for the semester, give or take. As Matt mentioned, there are various locations throughout London, so they're all priced just a little bit differently, but you're looking at around $7,000 for a semester. And then there is a program fee. It's currently a little under $2,000 for the semester. That includes overseas health insurance and co-curricular activities. And then there's a small study abroad fee, application fee, and a general technology fee. There's a full breakdown on our website. We give a really comprehensive spreadsheet, including all the costs. But the main thing to know is that tuition will remain the same, and all of a student's financial aid is fully portable. So any scholarships, financial aid will transfer over. The only exceptions to that would be Metro grants, room-specific aid, and work study. And in terms of tuition exchange, yes, it is portable. So that will also carry over if a student is going to London for the semester.
Great, thank you. A little bit of a broader question, but this program that we're talking about specifically is a Fordham run program. Are the professors Fordham professors, or do they pull also from local universities in London?
I can deal with that one. Yes, our faculty are quite an international group. We have approximately 30 faculty that work with us each semester, and they come from a very broad range of backgrounds. I would say we have 12 different nationalities working for us at Fordham in London. The majority of them are British, but we have several from other parts of Europe. We have a few Yanks on board too, and a few of our faculty from the Far East. Most of them will have at some point in their careers studied at a British university, I would say, and have experience of British higher education. Several of them work part-time for institutions in London. We have faculty, for instance, who are also at University College London. We have some faculty who come and travel from Cambridge University and Oxford University, who are also faculty in London, who are postdoctoral research fellows at those institutions. Many also have experience of teaching in the United States and also work for other US institutions in London. So in a typical semester in London, we're looking at approximately 20,000 US students studying in the city. So there's a great deal of experience of teaching US students to the US model. A lot of families and students may be concerned that they're going overseas and they're going to be studying a different pedagogical approach, but that's not the case. There should be a seamless transition between courses that are delivered at Fordham in New York and the courses that are taught in London. They're taught to the same sort of standards, to the same syllabi. Of course, many of the courses in London will have a different flavor. They'll have a flavor of British culture, of British business, British history that ties into it too. So it is going to enhance their educational experience in that way. Many of our faculty have been with us for a great deal of time. You know, we've been in Fordham. Fordham's been in London for over 20 years, and we have some of our faculty have been with us for over 10 years working with our students. So we're very proud of the very skilled and experienced group of individuals we have on our team.
Great, thank you. Next question, probably for Elizabeth. What are the options for non-business majors in terms of classes and internships? Historically, London has been a really wonderful place for our Gabelli students to study abroad, but I know that it offers a lot more for our non-Gabelli students. So if you could speak a little bit to those options.
Yeah, definitely. And Mark might want to jump in at some point here as well. But liberal arts students, they do have a few options. So we have our internship program, and that is open to either Gabelli students or liberal arts students. And then we also have a program specifically for liberal arts students. We have a wide variety of liberal arts courses available at the London Center. A lot of core classes that will fulfill a certain, core requirement that they need to complete, as well as some classes that are more specific to certain majors. And then any liberal arts student studying abroad their junior year does have the option to take one course at one of our partner universities in London. So we partner with University of Westminster, City University, and Queen Mary University. So a lot of times students will find maybe 3 courses that work really well for them at the London Center, but they're looking for a 4th, maybe something that's more specific to their major. So it's a really great opportunity for students to find a 4th class that might be tailored more specifically to someone in a film and television major or psychology major. Again, these are universities that are full universities in London, so they have a wide variety of options. Especially for juniors who are looking for maybe upper level electives for their major.
Yes, and maybe I can just add to what Elizabeth's saying there. We work with Westminster, City University of London and Queen Mary University of London. They're all prestigious institutions in the city, and students, as Elizabeth say, can take a class at a local institution. So they'll be really immersing themselves in the local educational experience, sitting side by side with local students and possibly other international students at those institutions. And as Elizabeth says, it tends to be courses that we maybe don't have available in the London Centre. Students are looking for something a little bit more specialised than what they can find through the Fordham Centre. The courses that we offer cover quite a broad range. We offer a range of sort of, for instance, introductory classes. So it may be something like art and architecture in London, that is quite a broad ranging course as an introduction to the field. Or they may be looking for something more specialized in the fields of media, for instance. One of our courses which we look at is sort of race, class and gender in the media, which is more of a senior level class. So there's a whole broad range and cross-section of courses available to students, which we hope will meet their needs. And most importantly, of course, meet their core requirements to allow them to progress with their degree when they return back to the United States. Would you like me to make, you mentioned internships. Shall I say a little bit about internships now? I don't know if Catherine, if that's a question you want to come to a bit later.
Sure, we can talk about them now. Please go ahead.
Okay, because of course, yes, one of the great benefits that I see to studying in London for students is the internship opportunity. And for me, this is such a wonderful experience for our students coming to London to spend 2 days a week working in a local company, working with British and international people within a professional environment. And we have places for 20 students each semester to come to London and do that. And I think this is probably one of the most enriching experiences a student can have when they're in the city, is to be working on practical projects in a work environment. And each semester we work with quite a broad cross-section of organizations in the city. What I will say is we tend to focus on small to medium-sized enterprises. A number of reasons for that. The lead-in time, the application process for large blue-chip companies is too long for us. Our students are applying 2 to 3 months prior to arrival in London, and that's not enough time to get them into a big Fortune 500 company. However, we really feel that the experience a student get in a smaller company is going to be a far more beneficial experience. They're going to have a more rounded experience in a smaller organization. They're going to get more hands-on experience in a number of different fields, and to really come away with some valuable transferable skills that they can then take back to the United States. You know, it can often be very simple things that students, they'll say, you know, when I'm discussing their internship with them, they say, oh, I don't feel I really learned anything today. I just sat on the telephone all day speaking to people. And I'll say, well, what was that like? You know, they say, well, it was really difficult because I couldn't understand anything anyone was saying to me. They spoke too fast, they used strange words. I really don't, you know, it was a real struggle and a real challenge. And as I explained to them, you know, when you first arrive in a new country and in a new environment, just being able to communicate with people, okay, we may speak English, but it's a different form of English. We phrase things in a different way. And these communication skills and intercultural skills you're going to develop through an internship in a foreign country are going to give you that real advantage when you're going out into the workplace. These are going to be the type of skills that companies are looking for from their employees in the future. And it's a very valuable experience. To give you some examples of companies we've worked with in the last year. They can be everything from a company called Reward Style, which is a fashion influencer company, and we had students in there working on styling, communication, PR releases, managing their social media, Instagram accounts. We had a student at a company called Snack Media, which is a sports digital company, and he was working on, we would call it football, you would call it soccer, marketing, digital marketing, the field for product placement there. We have students at WaterAid, which is a charity working in the developing world, and they were part of the fundraising team. And to give you an example, we've also had students working at publishing companies, PR companies, healthcare companies. We've had them working for political parties, working in policy at the Green Party and the Labour Party in London. And we also have internships in the business community. So for instance, we work with a number of accountancy firms in London that take our students too. So there's a real broad range of opportunities for students to get some really concrete skills and experience working in London.
Thanks, Mark. Kind of continuing down that same vein, I've had a couple of questions about the summer program coupled with the summer internship program. Can you folks talk a little bit about that and maybe the deadlines to apply for that, how it might differ from the regular program, and your plans for this summer?
I could talk about our plans for a standard summer. I think as Joe mentioned before, we have to be careful how things are going to develop for summer 2021. But in a standard summer, students can choose between taking a couple of courses in London in June. They can take 1 or 2 courses in June in London, and that is followed by an internship in July. So students will then, so they can choose to come just for 1 month and do courses, or they can stay on and then do an internship program through the month of July with a similar range of companies to the ones I've talked about before. And we do a range of courses that are maybe of a lighter nature in the summer. So for instance, we have a course that focuses on British fashion in film in the summer. We also have a Harry Potter philosophy course that we deliver. We have a literature course in text and context. We also offer a course in legal frameworks for business. So depending what type of courses they're looking for, we hopefully can find ones that are going to be of interest. These are generally 3 or 4 credits taught through June. And as I say, they will follow on from that into an internship through July. So some students choose to stay on. We have, I'm thinking roughly in the region of 50 to 60 students usually doing internships over the summer. I don't know if Elizabeth would like to talk about the application process for that and to give you some idea of the deadlines that will be required for it.
Sure. For the summer program, the deadline would be February 1st for the internship program. For the semester-long internship program, the application process is very similar. The main difference is that it's only open to juniors, not to second semester sophomores. And we do look for a 3.3 GPA rather than a 3.0, and you also have to include your resume in the application. For summer, it's open to anyone who is currently at least going to be a sophomore at the time they're abroad. And then we also look for the resume as well for the summer application.
Great, thank you both. Let's turn it over, I think, to Matt. I've gotten a couple of questions about any group activities, events, or travel for participants of the London program. Can you speak a little bit to those?
Of course, I'll have to speak to a typical semester and save
Of course.
kind of COVID-related, the COVID-related impact that we'll see on that side of student life and our work for the October meeting. So kind of apologies to those who are hoping to hear about that. That's something we're constantly reviewing and discussing, and by October we'll be able to give more detail. A typical semester includes a number of different things around student activities. So one is the program trip. So that's included in your program fees. As Elizabeth mentioned earlier, you can see how those are broken down on the website. So the program trips, that's Gabelli and liberal arts separately, typically include a weekend all-student trip to a European city. So that's been a tradition of the London programme. So Gabelli, typically, we take them to Rome for a long weekend. The liberal arts programme, we've actually moved around. So we've done Lisbon, Madrid, and Berlin as the three cities on the shortlist that we take students to. And those are a particular highlight, those trips. So if you're listening in and you have, you're a student or you're a parent of a student thinking of perhaps, let's say fall 2021 and beyond, these are the type of things that we would normally hope for and plan for in a semester. So that typically includes a programme dinner or the programme dinner for the semester, a lecture while we're over there, and fun activities. We've taken students to a flamenco dancing show, a pastry making workshop in Lisbon, if you've ever had a pastéis de nata, so wonderful Portuguese custard tart. I think Mark actually may have made one and made one of his own. So the program trip is one of the highlights. That's an individual kind of standalone event, but is particularly notable because we've taken groups in the past of 80, 90, 100 students to a city, and it's a real experience. Then we have our social calendar. Our social calendar is mainly London and UK focused. I'm sure if students are thinking of coming over in normal times, they're perhaps looking at flights to explore Europe in their own time. And so that's something which we normally support and provide advice on, but we try to provide alternative to make sure that students also experience London and experience the UK, so that London really does feel like a second home. So that may be with walking tours of different neighbourhoods, theatre tickets, sport tickets. We've had groups we had a group go and see England, USA soccer at Wembley. We had about, I think, 40 or 50 students go to that game. We'll do things perhaps in a UK city. So we do day trips to Stonehenge and Bath, York. We've done weekend trips to Edinburgh. Did a Game of Thrones themed trip to Belfast. So it was Game of Thrones and also kind of bit of history there as well with the Troubles. So two sides to that trip. And so we try to encourage students to experience the UK and get to know London. Another thing we have is the student programming committee. So when students come over, we invite volunteers to apply and form a student committee so that we can work with them on student-led events, and that leads to some fun and unique activities. We had a game of Assassin, which is not something I'm familiar with, but people were chasing each other around the building with plastic spoons. I think Mark took part. I think so. These type of fun things that are going on, we involve students in that as well. So there's lots going on in a short space of time. You can really immerse yourself into the activities that we organise, whether that's in lunchtime, an evening, or a full weekend. And often those activities that we're talking about under student events are usually subsidised, so you often get a good price. So let's say a day trip to Stonehenge and Bath, if you organise that yourself with a company, might cost you £80. With us, it's £30. So there's a lot going on. I hope that kind of gives it a little flavour. Obviously, in the immediate future, those things will be there may need for creativity and different types of events when we have government restrictions, which may not enable us to do some of those activities that we traditionally do.
Maybe I could add to what Matt's saying. He's talking about the activities that are going on in our building in a typical day, and I think I'd like to sort of add to that. We have this wonderful building, which I would say, without a shadow of a doubt, is the best study abroad centre for US students in London. We have incredible facilities, purpose-built state-of-the-art classrooms, meeting rooms, and public areas. And in a typical day, our building is buzzing with activity. We have both people coming into the building and students going out on field trips. So whether it's our faculty bringing external speakers in to talk to our students on a range of topics we've had in the last semester, writers coming in to talk to students, journalists. We've had people from the likes of Deloitte and Ernst & Young coming in to talk about risk management with our students. So whether it's from the business side or from the cultural community, coming to enrich and enhance their learning experience in the classroom. But also very much we encourage faculty to work with the students and take them out into the city. The learning experience in London is very much about what happens outside of the classroom, and the field trips that our faculty will lead, whether it's to visit Lloyd's of London, which is the oldest insurance brokerage in the world, visiting the Bank of England, visiting Goldman Sachs to meet staff and alums who actually work at Goldman Sachs in London, taking students to the Globe Theatre, the recreation of Shakespeare's Globe, to see Shakespeare as it was performed in the 17th century. Taking students to Highgate Cemetery for a tour of high Gothic architecture and the Victorian approach to death. Very much practical hands-on experience to really enrich a student's time in London. So the building on a daily basis is buzzing with life and activity and people. It's a really dynamic, exciting place to be.
You're all making me want to go now. I wish I could study abroad. Thank you, Matt and Mark. Let's go towards some of the academic side now. So I've gotten quite a few questions about classes. Is there a place that students can see a full list of classes offered? And does an advisor help students pick their classes so that they then count towards their major goals and graduation requirements?
I can answer that question. Yes, we do have all of our courses listed on our website, just our Study Abroad website, and I can put the link in the chat. But they typically don't change too much from semester to semester, and Mark can expand on that. But we do have a comprehensive list on our website, and we direct students there all the time to look at the options they have. The nice thing about this program is all the classes are Fordham run classes, with the exception of any liberal arts students taking a class at one of those partner universities we mentioned. But as I was talking about the application process, all students will need to meet with their either major advisor or Gabelli dean. So when they kind of have that conversation about asking their advisor or dean to complete the recommendation, that's a really good time for them to talk to them about their study abroad plans, and their advisors can provide them some insight on which courses would be good for them to take. And then if a student is taking a course at a partner university, either Queen Mary, City University, or University of Westminster, they will need to complete a course approval process. And we provide the form that they'll need to complete right in their study abroad portal. They'll just complete that with their major advisor to ensure that whatever class they're taking at partner university will then count towards either their major or minor.
And I would also encourage students to contact me directly in London. If they're looking for particular courses, we can also provide them with syllabi for those courses. I know that some students are already in touch with some of our faculty who will be delivering courses, hopefully in the spring, and making contact with them there too. And when we get through to the registration time, I spend a great deal of my time during registration is working with students, trying to find the best fit for their schedule whilst they're in London, trying to find courses that are going to meet their requirements. And I would say much of November and December in the run up to the spring semester is going to be spent with me helping students and guiding them through the process of registration to ensure they have the best set of courses available to them.
Wonderful, thank you. Just as a quick reminder to everyone attending today, Joe mentioned in the beginning, if you missed it, it's okay, I'll send out a recording, but the Study Abroad office, will be hosting another webinar for students and parents interested in the spring to address all of the COVID concerns in mid-October. So keep an eye out for that. For now, we are going to skip over some of those COVID-related questions, but they will be answered very soon, I promise. Okay. I have a question about some of the more specific areas of study. So what does the London experience look like for a STEM major who has like lab requirements, be it physics, biology, chemistry, anything like that, as well as somebody who might be in an honors program that has very specific graduation requirements?
I think STEM programs can be a challenge for us. I have to be honest. It's to manage a student's time. Teaching is taught in blocks, sort of 2.5 hour to 3 hour blocks. So they have one teaching period in a typical week. And so we don't at Fordham in our centre have the ability to really deliver STEM courses. So as we've already mentioned, students have the opportunity to go to local institutions, and there is some availability there, but it is quite a challenge to fit that into their program, because very often by the nature of the course and by, as you mentioned, lab work that's required, it can involve a number of visits to an institution in a typical week for them to meet all the requirements for that course. It's not to say it's not possible, and I would certainly encourage students to look at that, and if they are interested in moving that forward, definitely to come and speak to make contact with us in London. Once they've done that, we can then put them in touch with the particular institutions they're interested in, and they can start that conversation. And the sooner we start it, the better for meeting that objective in the following semester. But it is a challenge, but that there are options out there. But it does tend to mean that students may have to be more flexible in their approach to their timetables. I know a lot of students are very focused in trying to pack their studies into as short a period of time during the week as possible, but they may find if they want to do more complex classes like that, they may have to accept that they're going to have to spend a little bit more time in the classroom than they possibly that they would like to do. Equally, as it says for honours programs, there is a broader range of opportunities there. So we're looking at the local institutions in London that may fit for that. There's a wealth of opportunity. If you're looking at somewhere like Queen Mary, is one of the leading, particularly is one of the leading institutions in London in the fields of science and the arts and social sciences. So I feel there's a broad range of opportunity there for real niche courses that perhaps students can't find at Fordham in New York, and it will give them that opportunity to do more in-depth research in London. One of the beauties of the British education system that is different from the United States to a certain degree is the ability for independent study and independent research. And to take a course at a British institution will really allow you to broaden your research into very specific areas that are of interest to you. And when you look at the broad syllabus to a British course, you're allowed to really delve into that and really develop your own course within it and your own area of research. So depending on what it is, whether it's in literature, history, or the social sciences, you can really delve in to develop your own particular specialized interests within that field. So it's a great opportunity for people who have that niche that they want to explore.
I would just add to what Mark said. If any student, or if your child is having any questions or concerns, they think maybe they're in a major that just doesn't work for study abroad, definitely encourage them to book an appointment. We have advising sessions 5 days a week at Study Abroad office. Right now we're doing a combination of phone appointments and some limited in-person appointments at Rose Hill, but we've had students come in and say, my biology advisor told me I can't go abroad, and then when we talk through it with them, they realize that they can make it work. So definitely if they want to book an advising appointment, we definitely encourage them to meet with us one-on-one.
Great. So can students live on campus at Lincoln Center or Rose Hill in the following semester if they study abroad the semester before?
I can answer that question. Yes, so study abroad is actually the one time that a Fordham student can leave campus housing and return to campus housing when they come back from their semester abroad. I did it myself when I went abroad. I lived in Fordham housing all 4 years of my undergrad. So it's definitely very seamless, very easy. Essentially, the Office of Residential Life will send out an email. I think they do it sometime for the spring semester, sometime in the fall. A student can opt out of housing and just specify that they're a study abroad student, and they'll essentially have a spot reserved for them when they come back to campus if they're looking to still live on campus. after their semester abroad.
Great. We've also gotten a couple of questions about timing. So in your opinion, what do you think is the best time to study abroad, be it sophomore year, junior year, spring, fall semester, and are seniors permitted to study abroad as well?
Oh, when is the best time to study abroad? Heavens.
I would say anytime.
I have to say, I find students in their junior, I would say the junior year is probably the very best time to study. I think partly for your level of maturity that you've got to in life. It gives you that opportunity to explore. You're much clearer at that point about your major, the direction your studies is moving in. So that works particularly well. But equally, we have sophomore students coming over, and we do have a limited number of seniors coming over, but that can be more complex. So it's something. What I would say to students is, when you arrive in your freshman year, you need to start planning your study abroad experience then. You need to be talking to your advisors and thinking about it, talking to the study abroad office, looking at what your options will be and trying to build it into your program as early as you can to prepare yourself for that study abroad experience. Whether you come in the fall or the spring, you will have a slightly different experience. I mean, you're looking at the festivals that happen in the UK in the fall, and we have Halloween and Guy Fawkes Night. With the run up to Christmas, London is beautiful at that time of year. It's a great time to come. You come in the spring, our spring semester tends to be the more popular one, so it may be harder to get onto the spring program. You might have easier options getting onto the fall program. It's less oversubscribed. You come in the spring, you may see it as a better time to travel. You've got the run up coming to Easter, you have the break over Easter, the weather's improving in the spring semester. A lot of big sporting events are happening in the spring. You've got the football season, you've got the rugby season moving through in that time of year. So there's a lot of different opportunities. It'd be hard to pinpoint when would be a better semester to come. They both have their advantages. I don't know if Elizabeth, if you have anything you want to say, or Matt, to that one.
I was only going to kind of add to your comments on what we experience at the centre, just for kind of transparency for anyone who's listening in and weighing up the two. So in a full semester, on average, we may see 150 to 200 students as a ballpark. In the spring, for the last couple of years, around 350. So there's quite a difference in those numbers. And then the summer, we'll see a 50, 60, 70 students in that ballpark. So you get a different experience also based on those numbers. It's with the fall, that, you know, a smaller group, it's more likely that you get to know more of your peers on that experience. That the chances that you're sharing classes with them or going on trips with them. So the sense of community builds a little bit quicker in the fall, just because of those kind of shared experiences happening a little bit quicker and perhaps more naturally. Whereas in the spring, we have a much bigger student group. So if you're, that's partly because if, as a sophomore, you can only study abroad in your second semester. So that leads to that. But we tend to have higher numbers of Gabelli students in the spring than we do in the fall. So if that's something that you're looking at, as well as when does the majority of my peers and friends may study abroad, we tend to have more liberal arts students in the fall and more Gabelli business students in the spring.
Wonderful. I do want to be mindful of time. We have just a few minutes left. So I saw this question and thought we'd end with this one, with just a few words from each of you. So what are the key takeaways that Fordham hopes for students to gain who participate in the London program? Why don't we start with Elizabeth?
Sure. I think more than anything, and I won't say this is specific to London, but I think it is a wonderful opportunity just to expand your worldview. And it's particularly wonderful for students who maybe haven't traveled far from home. I think Fordham tends to attract a lot of students from the tri-state area, commuters, So we get a lot of students, you know, in their applications saying a reason they want to go abroad is because they've never left home, or, you know, they've traveled only a few hours to go to college. So I think it's just a wonderful chance to learn about new cultures, expand your worldview, and really gain a sense of independence.
Mark?
Well, I suppose I would have to agree with Elizabeth. We're looking at the transformative nature of study abroad to see how students grow and change and evolve over a semester abroad, to being able to look at their own culture from a different perspective and a different viewpoint. To be, as you say, as Elizabeth said, to be truly independent very often for the first time, away from family, away from their peers, allowing them to grow and develop as individuals and to explore themselves and get to know themselves better as people when they're removed from that home environment. And I think what we at Fordham are trying to provide them with in London is the tools to really experience that and to try and immerse themselves as best as possible into the local culture and to understand, to appreciate it and to reflect upon it. And I hope that it will be a life-changing experience for those students who choose to do it. And you know that it is as a building block, I think, also to their future careers. You know, think about the transferable skills that you're developing whilst you're abroad, the communication skills, the intercultural skills, and how you're going to be able to apply them to your future careers. It's a wonderful personal and professional enriching experience.
And how about you, Matt?
Well, they've stolen the good one. So yeah, one of the things, very briefly just to add to that, is I love to see the change in students in themselves, just as people and as adults in such a short space of time, and that experience can force a lot of situations on you that perhaps you haven't been in before, and perhaps traveling around Europe for the first time, and being in a foreign country, and you oversleep past your alarm, and you've got to rush to the airport, and all those type of crazy experiences that happen. I'm sure anyone listening, that's not your son or daughter. They're obviously perfect. But I would just have to say, if I'm going to sell it, London, I'm going to be the salesman. London is possibly, if not the best city in the world. I think it's fabulous, and it really gets into your blood. It gets under your skin, and there's something that's great about Fordham doing a full semester programs where you can come for a significant amount of time. And for those thinking of coming for a short amount of time, you can still really fall in love with the city. But if you can come for a couple of months, or in the summer, or 3 or 4 months if you come in the fall and spring, students really just fall in love with London. There's something for everyone. I think the way that it has grown as a city naturally over centuries, and there's so much history, there's so much architecture, and there's so much vibrancy that the people of the city bring to it, that it's the perfect mix. And I think it's a wonderful city to come and live in, and we'd love to have you.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us, Mark, Matt, and Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing your expertise and providing us with some answers. Thank you as well to all of our attendees. As I said during the program, keep an eye out for updates from the Study Abroad office, just in regards to the evolving COVID situation. There will be more information available mid-October. I will also be following up with a copy of the recording of this session, as well as some pertinent resources, both regarding study abroad in general and the London programs. So thank you all for joining today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and be well, stay healthy.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine.
Bye, everyone.
You.
Bye-bye. Lovely to meet you all.
You as well.